All right, guys, welcome to Onelife Podcast. Here's Josh. Josh is a unique chiropractor, right? You've got a very unique style of what you do. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I've been recommended by several people to talk to you.
Yeah.
You do amazing things with people, with your clinic. Let's get into it.
Okay.
What makes you different? What makes you're trying to talk about beforehand, like the chiropractic side? You have a unique style of that. What is that and why is that?
Great question. So about 10 years ago, I'm going to give you the long, short story.
Yeah,
so about
absolutely.
10 years ago, I got involved really heavily in the Tony Robbins community.
Okay.
And once you go to one of Tony's events, you can go back and be a volunteer crew member to help facilitate.
Oh, can you really?
Yeah. So at the time, he was doing maybe 1,000, 3,000 person events. And so I would volunteer to crew some of these events. And he had one here in Las Vegas at the Bellagio called Business Mastery, and there was like 1,000 participants at it. So it's one of his smaller events at the time.
That's so hard to think him doing 1,000.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, now he's doing like 10, 15, 30,000 people on Zoom.
Yeah,
they're
I've been
insane.
a fan of him for forever.
Oh, these insane events.
Yeah.
So either the doc that works on him is Dr. Donald Epstein. So either Donnie, we call him Donnie, either Donnie or one of the docs he's trained are like Tony's personal chiropractors.
Okay.
And he actually tells a story about how he met Donnie and how it helped him heal, and how he encountered his wife. He tells us that at Date with Destiny. So I'd just been to this other event called Date with Destiny, and I'm here in Business Mastery. Well, we're breaking down the green room in the back, which is like Tony's personal room, after the event. And Donnie's working on this guy, and he's got this guy face down, and he's doing this movement behind the guy's leg, and he does this like wizard shit in the air. I'm like, what the heck's going on? He's barely touching this guy, and the guy has his arms up, and he goes, ah. You can just see him like visibly relax, and I'm like, what the heck is
What
this?
just happened?
What the heck am I with? Like my mouth's open. I'm like, what is going on? So he's doing his wizard thing, and he looks up and he winks at me while he's doing this whole thing. And I went up to him afterwards, and I'd actually been having all this trauma come out. It was like I had childhood trauma that I was like resurfacing and like reintegrating that was coming up for me at this event. I had all this pain in my arm and in my chest. And I went up to him and I said, hey, I don't know what I just saw, but could you refer somebody to me in the Baltimore, DC area, which is where I lived at the time? And he looked right at my chest where I was experiencing the pain. He's like, go sit down over there. I'll be with you in a minute.
Oh, really?
And I was like, okay. So he starts working on me, and he starts asking me all these questions you should have no business knowing about, like who had the addiction in your family and what injury happened at 17, and just all these random things.
Which were true.
Yeah, which are very true.
Really?
And he's like, oh yeah, he's like, oh, this thing on your spine here, this is about so many years old. What happened then? And it was like reading my history from just feeling my back and my spine.
And you're literally a chiropractor at the time.
I was
right?
not.
Oh,
no,
you weren't?
I was
you
not.
weren't?
I was just, I was doing marketing consulting at the time. Like I was just getting out of the corporate world. I was just getting out of the military. Like I was kind of in a transition point in my life. I had nothing to do with health. I was a marketing major in my undergrad. Nothing to do with health. So I was
just reading you.
Yeah, and I walk away from this experience just totally blown away. So I find the one guy that did this in Bethesda, Maryland, and I actually bartered. I was starting my marketing consulting at the time, so I bartered services with him. I helped him with his website, helped him with his videos.
I love butter. I butter very
well. Yeah, and he would
do.
He would work on me. Yeah. He would give me care, and
I butter with my Muay Thai coach.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah. So I was in his office all the time. He gave me 2 of Donnie's books. He gave me the 12 Stages of Healing, which and a workbook that does like breath work. I went through both of those like cover to cover, and I was just involved. I was just enthralled by the work. And I kind of had the call then of like, oh, this is something you should do. But I was like, no, I got to go back to school. I'd have to be a chiropractor.
How old were you?
I was maybe 30. Around 30
so
when I found it.
old.
Yeah, not too old. But I was like, oh, it's too much time. It's too much money. I'm not going to do it. And then in 2014, my brother gets diagnosed with leukemia. And I kind of got to see the inside of the medical world. And I'd already been a patient of this care for 2 years. And it already helped change so many things for me. It helped me unwind alcoholism, PTSD, depression, anxiety, like aches and pains.
Did you have a lot for the military, like injuries and?
Yeah, I was in Afghanistan in 2007.
Okay, and so right in the mix of it.
Yeah, I came back, checked on all the boxes. I was fine. I was not fine. I spent a good 3 years, trying to self-medicate with alcohol.
Okay.
I lost my security clearance, lost my house, lost my job. Kind of.
Really?
Yeah, it was a bit of a mess. Burnt just about every relationship in my life to the ground at that point.
Is that just not having the right guidance to go to transition? Is it the transition? How do you explain that?
That was for me it was
is it the lack of care from the government or the country, or
yeah. So the
if you don't mind me asking.
No. I'm open book on this, and I do a lot of work with vets too. So
yeah, that's why
we have these conversations, and it's very, very open about it, because that was the stigma for me at the time, was I have to keep my security clearance. Like I was moving to the civilian sector, and that was going to be useful for me. And if they knew these things, or if they saw I was having issues.
So you're putting this front on even more.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm like hiding all this stuff. It was like drinking by myself, and
okay.
It was that kind of thing that was happening.
And all your friends were probably in the people you didn't want to know.
I would go out with my friends and drink, and then come back to the house and still have drinks by myself until I passed out
Really?
at the end of the night. Yeah. So it was doing stuff like that. I mean, the way the military is structured, I don't know if it's different now. This is 15 years ago. Is they call it a TAP program. It's a transition assistance program, which I think it's like a 2 or 3 day program, and they teach you how to write a resume. It's like, here's a resume.
So you learn to kill and blow stuff up for 4 days.
Yeah, and maybe you get some interview skills.
3 days to like transition back.
Good luck. Here's how to get, go.
Not even worry about what's going on up here or what you're seeing or done.
No, good luck. Go get a job.
Is it just America, or is there any other countries doing it better?
I don't know. I worked with the Aussies. Actually worked with the Aussies in Kandahar. So we did intel for all the different special forces units, and Aussies were one of them. And I don't know.
I always wonder that.
I think it's pretty. I was at a one of the Man on Fire events, the men's events that I worked with in December, and there was a British SAS guy there. Same thing, just trauma from.
Really, yeah.
He was about your size. He's like I'm going to bust through the door type of guy.
Yeah.
And trauma. I mean, but they don't give him any tools to process that. They just kind of throw us back out in the wild and good luck.
I expect you to, figure it out.
Versus like a World War II where, it was months. It was months. You came back via ship. You had time to decompress there. You hit land and then you drove across country.
Even on a ship, right? And having the ability to talk to somebody going through the same thing.
Right.
But you come back on a plane, you're back within a day.
You're in hours. Yeah.
Yeah, hours. Yeah, that's a valid point, isn't it?
Yeah. So there isn't I got back in October 27. I separated from the service in April 28, 2008. So not long. And most of that time was spent, well, how am I going to get a job? How am I going to get a job? Not really like, hey, I really should process this. But there really wasn't any time to process that experience at all.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you more about that, but
sure.
Continue going.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I just mean there's so much there. Like it has come up so many times on this podcast. I've had people do nonprofits, like Bruno being another example.
Yeah, you mentioned. So I've
male, tough dude, unable to show emotion. Like,
yeah, Bruno and I have some good conversations. So I participated in MVP and merging vets and players.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like him. Yeah. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
So you so as far as the studying, you're 30, you start to read these books, consume these books, you start to see that you may want to go that path.
Yep.
Continue on that.
Yeah. So my brother gets diagnosed with leukemia. He checks into the hospital for about 2.5 months. They're 24/7. I think he goes through 2 rounds of chemo during that time. And my wife, then fiance, and I moved in with him and his family. I had 2 little kids. I think my niece was 6 or 7. My nephew was, I don't even think he was 2 yet. And either, his wife or my mom, my dad, or me, we would rotate taking shifts.
Okay.
With him in the hospital to advocate for him, because he was out of it a lot of times. This is pre-COVID when you need to medically advocate type of stuff. So we were there for that, or we would take his kids to school, and we just had 2 months. And the then marketing consulting practice that my wife and I built in LA just kind of evaporated overnight, where I would open my laptop and just stare at a blank screen and just messaged all my clients. I'm like, listen, I can't help you right now. Like,
I just didn't have the time.
Yeah, I didn't have the headspace.
Headspace.
I need to be here focused on family. So I kind of let that business go. And initially it looked like he was going to be okay. They're like, oh, we celebrated his 30th birthday in the hospital. It looked like he was going to be fine. And so I had to make the decision then of like, okay, do we go back to LA? I can recreate this same business. or do we do something else? And I just felt called to do something about health, and that kind of put me on the road to. I called up our practitioner that was in LA, and I'm like, hey, I'm considering becoming a chiropractor and doing this work. Like, what do you think? She's like, oh, I think you'd be great.
Really?
You know, go to this school. And I'm like, all right,
that's cool.
So
you're kind of forced to get out of what you're doing, and then you're like, oh, why not give this a go?
Yeah,
that's interesting.
So it was a big mid-30s trend. I mean, totally different. Like the first few quarters of chiropractic school, I'm having nightmares that my head's going to pop off because I'm learning I'm learning like 500 new words a week. Like I had no basis for medical terminology or Latin or.
Are you pretty book smart? And
I thought I was, but
I'm not.
It was
what you're telling me. I was like, I don't know if I could do that. I'd have to really want to do that.
I had to. Yeah, Well, I had the fire for being there for my brother. Like that was the difference for me. Of like, I saw what the alternate was that. And he ended up passing within a year. I mean,
really?
It was this gigantic roller coaster. Had I known that, that would have happened, I would have just stayed. If I knew like, hey, this is the last year you get to be with your brother, I would have stayed.
Yeah.
But I was like, no, he's going to be fine. And then he was doing good, doing great, and then just kind of collapsed within a year.
Is there anything you've learned or seen that would have helped now that you're in the medical field and? It is, know what I'm kind of getting at? Yeah,
I think it's the philosophy. I think the underpinning philosophy of the difference in our medical paradigm versus, like it's a sickness, it's a disease paradigm versus health. I think that this is the underlying philosophy difference. Because if your foundation's different, every decision you make after that's going to be radically different. So from a philosophical standpoint, their view of it, and I was there when the doctors presented him with the diagnosis and the treatment plan. Like I was there with him and his wife when they made this statement. And me being a marketing sales guy, I was kind of trained in this. Like it was a pitch, and I'm not saying this to like dog the medical profession, but it's like it was structured as a sales presentation.
That's interesting.
Yeah, which I found incredibly interesting. And it almost went like this. It was, your brother has leukemia. We don't know what causes it, but here's what we're going to do. And it was like this really quick sleight of hand. So, hey, let's explore what's causing this was taken off the table immediately. It was immediately, let's move to chemo and let's move to doing these things. Now the flip side of that is when he first walked into the hospital, his white blood cell count was 100,000.
Yeah.
And to put that in perspective, normal is between like 3 and 10. Leukemia is considered about 20,000. So he was 5 times the leukemia level.
Okay.
Just walking into the hospital. So what they did was they put a needle into his neck, pulled out his blood, spun in a centrifuge, put it back into his neck without the white blood cells. They were worried that his heart was going to stop because his blood was like sludge. Like there was just so many malformed white blood cells.
Yeah.
Arguably saved his life, like in that first like 48 hours. Now the decisions that they made after that was like, okay, was this helping or hurting? I mean, he ended up having a psychotic episode about 5-6 months into it where he lost all his short-term memory. So all of these things kind of stacked up. And if, from that initial round of chemotherapy, leukemia never showed up in his system again. So it was always we need to do this in case this comes back. Well, this is to do this. And he went through 2 stem cell transplant. Probably went through 4 or 5 rounds of chemo, 2 stem cell transplant, and then the Hail Mary was a bone marrow transplant with me. It was only a half match. So what ended up happening at the end was he had graft versus host disease, which is my cells took on. They didn't recognize his cells. They started attacking his body.
Got it. Okay.
And that was the final piece for him.
Okay.
But it was that underpinning philosophy though was, well, we don't know what's happening. We're not going to explore that. And let's just drop a nuclear bomb into a system and hope it reboots.
I hope for the best.
Hope for the best.
So you're saying going back to more of the core and finding the base of health, like prevention rather than cure, right? Mentality. And that was, and these are some of the talks I do of like, it's that philosophy of health of like, what is health? And most times we're just taught health is the absence of disease. Well, if I'm not sick, I'm healthy. It's like, well, not really. Like if I'm not in pain, I'm healthy. Like, even the World Health Organization looks at it and they see, health is, it's a mental component. It's a spiritual component. It's a financial component. It's a physical component. It's all these,
I don't know if I said spiritual. It's a spiritual component. Like it's all those pieces
Yeah.
woven into one, and it's an abundance of that. It's like you're a vitality, a vibrance is really what life is. So when he stepped into that model, it really was like, well, we're not going to explore this. And when he first walked in, they're like, oh, he's healthy. He was in the military as well. And they're like, oh, he just passed his PT test. He got a 95 on his last PT test. He's healthy. Well, we started scratching on the surface of that, and he had all sorts of digestive issues. He was actually taking medication for that. He'd have headaches and migraines. He was taking ibuprofen for that. My nephew had spent the first year and a half in the NICU. He was born prematurely, so that was stressful.
The stress on that.
Yeah, our grandmother had just passed 2 weeks before he was in the hospital. That's actually why we were in Ohio to begin with.
Well, okay.
So that was stressful. He was commuting an hour and 15 minutes one way, so 2.5 hours every day back and forth to work. His wife was in a medical program.
So the process of elimination, right?
Getting
back to the core and thinking about these things.
Yeah, there's all these different stressful. Yeah. He was a physics major. He was a scientist for the Air Force. He had majored in physics, and he was in an engineering. He was in an electrical engineering program, which is completely different. And he was stressed out about that. I think he had failed or had to drop a class. So it was all these stressful things stacked onto it. And there was some thought, we never got confirmation of this, of whether he was working with benzene in his scientific, the science experiments, which can be a precursor to leukemia as well. So, so we're like, okay, there's all this stress. There's a gut thing going on. There's some headache thing going on. His immune system's off. 80% of the immune system is in the gut.
Yeah. I literally learned that the other day.
So it's okay, what's going on with the gut?
Gut health being the core.
Yeah. But really, even in the last 8 years, the gut-brain connection is just...
Yeah, the second brain.
It's just, that's just really starting to make the forefront of
my second last guest was preaching this stuff.
Yeah. So none of that was the conversation then. I remember asking, after his first round of chemo, I asked one of the doctors, what do you think he should eat? And in my mind, I'm thinking, green smoothies, something clean, put great nutrients and great things into his body. And he looked up and his eyes went back and forth for a moment. And he's like, if he eats a hamburger, I'm happy with that. I'm like, no, wrong answer.
And I talk about this a lot. And I don't want to diss on nurses or doctors, but generally they're not healthy.
Yeah.
You don't look at a doctor and I want to have the health of that doctor.
Right.
You want them to prescribe you something when you need it.
Right.
But besides that, hell no.
Right. Well, they're not taught it.
No, it's not them personally.
Yeah.
They're just a regular human being with good and bad habits.
Yeah.
And most of us have consistent bad habits. That's why we're all overweight and unhealthy.
Yeah.
And doctors and nurses aren't any different to that.
Yeah. If you look at their education, they get this 5 hours of nutrition. It's 300 hours of pharmacology and 5 hours of
it's like
nutrition.
Going to a fat personal trainer or someone who's in shape. You're going to get the person who's in shape.
Right.
It's different with doctors, unless people go your route.
Right.
Yeah. Talk to me about your route. So you do the study. What happens?
Yeah. So I'm in this program, and while I'm doing it, I'm studying the work. So I'm studying Donnie Epstein's work. So I'm trained as a traditional chiropractor, but then also this is kind of like a postgraduate. I would go to seminars and train with other mentors to learn how to do the work. It's very gentle, it's very low touch, but it's kind of a merger between chiropractic, energy healing, and personal development. It's full mind, body, spirit, mental, emotional, all those pieces kind of woven into one. Because I get to sit in chairs like this, and I'm usually interviewing people as they're coming in as kind of the consultation, or one of my team members are, and to get to sit in this seat and ask people why do you think your health is the way it is? It's rarely physical.
Oh, really?
Maybe there's a physical trauma. Yeah, there's a car wreck or there's something. But it's well, what else was happening at your life at that time? And it's well, there was a big divorce. A loved one passed away. I was abused. And it's there's usually a physical, there's some emotional trauma, and it's almost like a physical trauma then locks it in, and then it's stored in the system.
Okay, so you're interviewing, you're pre-screening him, but you're looking deeper.
Yeah, we're considering the whole person, because it's there's been plenty of times where ouch, my shoulder hurts, we get the shoulder functioning, and it's no longer a physical issue. It's like there's something deeper here.
Even with something like a shoulder.
Yeah, I mean, and that was even my first experience with this. So that time I was on crew, there was actually another chiropractor that was on crew, and I had him adjust me twice. And he actually even said to me, it was a structural, I'd been structurally adjusted since I was like 17. I pole vaulted in high school, wrecked my elbow, fell into the box, hurt my hip. So I and chased around probably, 10 to 15 different chiropractors to try to work out plantar fasciitis pain, hip pain, shoulder, just trauma, headaches, you name it. Yeah. I'd already chased this route to try to, and some worked, some didn't, But he adjusted me twice, and he even said, he's like, I don't think this is physical. And I was like, well, great. What does that mean? At the time, I was like, I don't know.
Yeah. What does that
and then
mean?
I meet Donnie like that day or like the next day or something like that.
That's crazy. Okay, so So I mean, you talk PTSD. You're talking about a lot of trauma, a lot of stuff you've been through. Was that expressed? Was that when you're treated? What happened? And then what are you doing for other people? Yeah.
So for me, it would be really amazing. I would have pain all the way down my arm and all the way down to my wrist. And the guy I would see in Bethesda, Maryland, he would make these really gentle contacts, and I'm like, you're not even touching it, but my wrist is getting better.
Like Reiki type?
It's similar, but not. People ask me all the time, like, is this like Reiki? I'm like, I've never studied Reiki, so I can't exactly speak to that. We're on the body. We're on the body. We're off the body sometimes, but it's generally on the body. We're tractioning tissue. We're making contacts at very specific points in the neck, very specific points in the sacrum, which is like the low back.
Yeah.
And these are access points. Like think of them like even though they don't tie to meridians in the acupuncture world, it's kind of like an acupressure point. It's similar in concept to that. We call them a gateway, and it's an access point where there's the body has through a very gentle touch, it can start to like re-cue the nervous system and reboot the brain, reboot the nervous system.
When you say gentle touch, like 5%, 10%?
Like no more than what it would take for you to put like a contact lens in.
Really?
So very gentle in that space. Yeah. Sometimes that's kind of the start.
That must have blown your mind. You being this brute, like
it totally blew my
military guy.
Yeah. Well, I was an intel officer, so like to me everything was like facts and data, probabilities. I had just come out of the world where, if you screwed with any of that stuff, people died. So like I was instilled that it was very black and white for me. So to be in this hippie woo-woo space, I was like, this is bullshit.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how most people are probably going to see it until they probably experience it.
I mean, I would watch other people who see this work, and I was seeing these same changes happen to me, and I'm like, this shit's voodoo. Like those were literally the words I would say.
I see Jody next week.
Yeah.
To do a consultation.
Okay.
And I'm kind of on your side, on the old you until I experience it. But I'm not going to not try it.
Right.
But I don't know. So I've never done it.
Yeah.
I've done Reiki, and that blew my mind.
Yeah.
And that was just a little gentle touch. I was like, he didn't do anything, but I feel amazing.
Right.
So I'm excited, but I'm also like skeptical, I guess.
Well, I think it was our understanding of quantum physics, and the old Newtonian model. If you listen to guys like Dr. Joe Dispenza, there's Dr. Bruce Lipton, there's guys out there that are talking about this. The old model was matter creates the field, like the Carillion photography. It could see your aura type of thing. That was the idea. What modern like quantum physics is telling us is that it's the field of energy that exists around us that is organizing the matter. It's really like the building block. It's like the field organizes the matter, organizes the nervous system tells everything else what to do, tells the muscles where to go, tells the hormones what to do. So if we look at like mainstream medicine, what are they working on? They're working on hormones or chemical processes. Like that's very downstream.
Gotcha.
Of other things that are happening.
Downstream's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. So it's they're treating more of an effect versus, well, where's the cause? Is it in the muscle? Is it in the nervous system? Is it in the bone? Is it in the field? Is it in the energy field? Is it in the mind?
Yeah.
Like that, all that matters as to how the body is organizing itself.
Are you, would you say you're reverse engineering to get back to the core, or how do you figure out how far back to go and where to go?
Yeah, great question. In terms of like where's this coming from?
Or? Simple as the arm pain. Like, how do you know it's coming from here, or it's coming from
Great question.
All those things you just mentioned.
Yeah. So what we don't have to, I'll give you what we don't have to. We don't have to, like, a therapist would like, let's find the story of, when Johnny was 5 years old and this happened. That can come up and that can be helpful. It doesn't have to. And I'm a terrible therapist anyway. So I don't,
I like that.
I can hold you presents, but I don't, I would like to refer out to that. If you really need to talk to somebody about that, please find somebody. Yeah. But we think energy and information lives up here. It really lives everywhere.
Okay.
And it's almost like trauma happens, and I use trauma with a capital T, like falls, bone breaks, car wrecks. That's the physical trauma. Then there's emotional trauma, significant emotional events, abuse. Verbal abuse is shown just to be as just traumatic as brain wise as physical abuse is. Deaths,
divorce,
breakups. All those are big emotional events for us. And then toxins. So, I mentioned my brother, like benzene, that's a toxin. The air we breathe, the water we drink, the chemicals that we're exposed to. Like
alcohol, cigarettes.
Cigarettes, right. Drugs, like all of those are toxins in our environment. And that can affect our nervous system. So I think all of those pieces, it doesn't have to, it's not necessarily any one of those. It's a lot of times it's a combination thereof. But it'll affect our nervous system. And our nervous system will actually change and contort. We'll go from having that kind of standing up tall. And you'll see people that, it's not as they age, it's really like the effect of life. And they start to roll in or they start to curve. And then they start posturing. Their posture changes and then they start posturing through life. Like they're avoiding this wound that's been stored here. And part of my work is like, let's access that. Let's go back and tap into, that energy, that trauma, however you want to phrase it. It's got stored in the tissues. The issues are in the tissues. And let's release that. Let's reintegrate it.
What makes someone go to you then?
Either they've had this work before somewhere else. So me and Dr. Jeff, we're the only two docs in town that do this particular in Vegas. That do this particular work. So either they've had it somewhere else. Donnie's trained over 1,000 docs around the world, and there's not many of us, but in some of the bigger cities, there's pockets type of thing. So it's either they've had care someone else, or they're a family member. Like that's kind of that's a good chunk of my practice.
Like a word of mouth type.
Yeah. So that's a piece of it. The other side is I get people who have tried everything.
Okay.
Like they've done the drugs, they've done the surgery, they've gone to traditional chiropractors, they've gone to acupuncturists, they've done massage therapists, they've done 5-MeO DMT, they've done ayahuasca. Like I've seen that side of it too. You name it.
They've tried everything.
And still they're not getting a result in their life.
Okay.
And we find ways to unwind them, because it's like none of those other things like address the nervous system or address the field that's organizing the nervous system. And we start to shift that, and it's a cascade of all these things start to shift down the line.
That's interesting. So if I came to you, why would I come to you? Would I have to be experiencing pain? Would I have to feel off? Would I just feel the need to come to you?
Great question. Yeah, it's very dependent. So when I started the work, it was ouch, my shoulder hurt. Like,
Yeah, you had physical.
Right, it was physical pain for me. And I would say when I started, if here were my scale of 1 to 10, I lived at a 5 most days.
On pain wise.
Yeah, I was just like, just all of life. Like it was like everything in life was turned down. And I was living at that 5, pain wise, just not happy, alcohol, like all those pieces, just kind of middle of the road. What's changed for me over time is that scale's changed. Whereas like now, even my worst day is still significantly better than what my best day was.
Yeah, okay.
So I've been under this care now since 2012. So like 11 years now, 12 years. And so it's radically changed. What keeps me in it now, and this is why guys like Tony Robbins do this, Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra, like there's a lot of like high level guys in the spiritual speaker community that have been into this work. Is I know where optimal is for me, and then I know where less than optimal is. And I'm always pushing, 1, how do I stay at optimal? And then 2, how do I grow that capacity? Like if optimal's here, how can I get more?
Yeah.
And how can I find another edge and another edge and another edge?
No, another edge.
Yep.
Yeah, for me, it's cold plunges lately.
Cold plunges.
This is taking me that another edge.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm always looking for that.
Gotcha.
And I weave in a lot of stuff too. I mean, it's meditation, it's journaling, it's cold plunges.
Well, I was going to say, I started meditation, I started journaling, I started cold plunge all this year. So it's leveling up.
Yep.
So I love what you say, that it's another edge.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, so this work, the work I'm doing now, like I was getting care while I was in chiropractic school, and the breath work component, that's a piece of it.
Breath work being another one.
Is a big one. And also developed by Donnie. He calls it somato-respiratory integration. So soma means body.
Say what?
Yeah. Soma means body, respiratory means breath, bringing the breath and body together.
Okay.
I think of them more as like consciousness exercises. It's like accessing different states of consciousness.
Okay.
To help you heal and help you like show up how you want to show
now
up.
I can see the Mary Liz coming out of you.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about this too. So between the work, SRI, and meditation, those are like my secret weapons.
Okay.
Going through school. I mean, I was in my 30s when the average chiropractic student is in their early 20s, and they're stressing about, oh my God, finals and boards. And I had pretty much every major life event happen. Like my brother passed, I got married during that time. I had 2 kids.
This is nothing.
All while in the program. I was running a 6-figure business, consulting for 7-figure businesses on the side so we could have a family and have our own place. And I'm like, like coasting through this whole program. And it would be like, I would just show up, do the test, and then like, I'm on a sales call. And it's like, I could shift through life and not have to like, oh my God, this is so stressful all the time. So my bandwidth and my ability to experience and push life was just so dramatically different.
Gotcha.
And that's what keeps me in it now.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
What is you've had like clients come in, what has been some crazy stuff that you've seen you've done for people?
I would say, okay, here's the craziest one. We had a practice member who she has MS, multiple sclerosis. She had been blind for 13 years and just massive trauma in this woman's life, all the way back to a very young age. Things you wouldn't even wish on anybody in her early teens. Like she was kidnapped, she's all sorts of things done to her. And, she just carried this trauma with her. She was at the point when she came in, every step that she would take, she would just have zinging pain, shooting pain everywhere. Would just push everybody away.
Was she injured?
Physically? Yes. Yeah. Physically, emotionally, mentally.
But had she been in an accident or anything physical, or was just the trauma that was?
Well, the kidnapping, yeah, she was raped. I mean, there was
so she'd been through
multiple traumas, associated with that. And there's more to the story, but I'm just gonna keep it at that. So lots of trauma with this, and shooting pain. And she's actually she's come out and shared with us that, before she came in, she was ready to end her life because she's just like, I'm just tired of being in pain. Yeah. All the time. Blind, she couldn't see out of one eye, and she kind of sees shadows out of one eye, out of the other eye. And within a few weeks, I want to say it was a couple months, she comes in and she starts like, she's dancing. Really? Yeah, she's like, and I'm like, that's freaking amazing. She's like, I can do this. Like, I haven't been able to move like this in forever. Because otherwise, she was like cautious with every movement.
How old was she?
In her 50s,
okay.
I want to say.
So not
like 40s, early 50s.
So, too young to be moving like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So, in multiple sclerosis is like the nervous, it's like it's an autoimmune condition. Yeah. The immune system's attacking the nervous system and destroying it. So, again, brain to body connection signals way off. So she starts moving. And then she starts shifting the rest of her life. Like she's now in a relationship. Like she had a really toxic relationship with her daughter. She like drew new boundaries with that. She actually started getting vision back in her eyes. She's like, I don't know what you're doing, but she's like, I haven't been able to see out of this eye in 13 years, and like I can see shadows now. And the shadows in this one are getting clear. Really? Yeah. When we got her to a certain point, like it kind of leveled off, but it was like just slowly the body was starting to heal. And like, so I have a really deep belief in like just the power of the human body to heal at any age, like any condition. Like there's things that like the body can heal, and we're so taught that once you get on this road, it's slow road to the grave.
In the mind, it's like human beings, the only person they get in their own road of healing.
Yeah.
Whereas animals just do it instinctually.
Right.
But we tend to throw everything. If you're sick, you got to eat.
Right.
You probably should be fasting.
Right.
Just a simple example of it.
Right.
So, what were you doing with her?
So doing the work. I mean, we were working on her spine, helping release that tension in her spine. And I was teaching her the consciousness exercises, and she would take those and do those and go home.
So you're giving her homework?
Yeah, I would give her the homework. And it's like, hey, when these things come up in your life, so that like the first three are like stage one is suffering. And it's like suffering, suffering is the avoidance of suffering. It's like a Buddhist saying. So it's like, okay, let's get with the suffering. Let's find out, where are we experiencing unworthiness, not feeling good enough, or that we're not loved, or that we're not meant to be here. Like all of that is suffering.
Does it take people a while to open up to a stranger?
Sometimes. I find people open up to strangers.
Yeah,
sometimes
you know what? I've had
easier.
strangers here and they've told me stuff they probably haven't told their best friends.
Yeah.
So I can totally relate.
We create the container for it. I think that's a piece of it too, of like, I've trained one of my staff members. He does a lot of the consults now. And I just expect people to tell me everything. And it's like...
You want me to help you or not?
Yeah.
I need to know everything.
Well, it's because it's about you. Because it's really like...
it's confidential.
It's like, what do you want for your health? Where do you want to go?
You're not judging. You're not plusing it on social media.
No. So we keep very grounded with that of like, okay, this is space for you to heal. And, where you want to go with it is it's up to you. And there's been people... I actually had a mother-daughter couple come in, and the mother was being very held back from things, and the daughter mentioned that she was smoking, and then she yelled at her in Spanish. And I speak an okay amount of Spanish to know that like she was telling her don't tell him that, and da-da-da. I'm like, okay, well, if you're not really going to be truthful about this, like
you're not helping anybody.
How do you think you're actually going to get to where you want to go?
Yeah.
So it's
I like that. So you're doing a lot with men's mental health.
Yeah.
Why? Where does that come from?
Great question.
Just before that, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's absolutely amazing. And you inspire me with what I'm doing to do what you do more.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
But why? Where does that come from?
So my brother passed, and it had been about 2 years. And
You've been ill for about 2 years?
No, so he passed in 2015.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was right around 2017. I mean, I had the tools of this work. I was using some of them, and it definitely helped me get through that.
Okay.
But I was still holding on to a lot of guilt, anger, sadness. Like I was
just from your brother.
Yeah, I was still holding on to a lot of this, and I was stuffing it down. I just kept going. I was just working. Going to school, and I'd taken some time off after my now 7-year-old was born. And we decided to change schools. So we went from the chiropractic school in California to one in Georgia. And I was going to work through Christmas and then start school in the spring. And I'm working all these crazy long hours. I was selling Vitamixes at Costco. Like I got this just kind of, I was the pitch man making smoothies at Costco and selling blenders. Yeah, for Christmas time. And, long hours between my wife having postpartum. I didn't know how to recognize that at the time. So my wife having postpartum, taking a California girl out of California, putting her in Georgia where she had no support.
Yeah.
And me carrying this anger and just destroying my relationship, like taking all this anger out on her rather than dealing with it and processing it. Even though I had the tools, I really hadn't embodied the tools yet. Like I'd learned them, I knew them, but I didn't know them.
Yourself is so much different than someone else too.
Yeah.
I hear that a lot.
Yeah. So there was a difference there. And, Christmas rolled around. We were going to celebrate Christmas in LA with her family, and she just never bought a return plane ticket home. So we do LA, and I'm like, hey, are you coming home? What's going on? I'm supposed to start school again. And she's like, I'm not going back to Georgia, and I don't know if I want to be with you anymore.
Oh, wow.
So I had to take a really hard look in the mirror. So this is my second marriage. So my previous marriage, I have a daughter there too, and I had a cross-country relationship with her. And I had to look and go, okay, now I'm going to have 2 broken marriages with 2 cross-country relationships with 2 daughters. Who's the common denominator here? It's me.
Was it your fault the first time, you think?
Oh, I have responsibility in it. I mean, we both had responsibility in that relationship, but I got married at 20 and divorced at 22.
Okay.
I had 0 tools at that time.
And you're in the military.
Yeah, it was my senior year.
Okay.
And I was just about to commission into the Air Force. And so,
what's the common denominator?
Yeah, it's me.
That's a
it's me.
That's a loaded question, right? That's
Yeah.
a hard thing to
I had to take the real hard look in the mirror and go like,
that's a hard thing to do.
This.
I feel like we all need to do that, but no, we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Because we all know the answer.
Yeah. So a peer mentor of mine, peer in that he does the same work that I do. He was one of Donnie's students.
Yeah.
Practiced in Manhattan for 20, 25 years. Had started a men's program. And I met him in 2014. And his program's called Man on Fire. His name's David Mailer.
What's it called?
Man on Fire.
Man on Fire.
Yeah. So I'd been following David. My wife knew him. I knew him. When I would go to Donnie's events, I would seek him out. I would see him. So I knew of him. I was on his email list. And even my wife even kept telling me like, hey, you really should talk to David. You really should talk to David. And I'm like, no, I'll figure this out myself. Well, she leaves me and I get one of his emails one day. I'm like, okay, I'm going to talk to David. So I get on the phone with him. He inspires me to come to one of his events.
In Manhattan?
It was at Stamford, Connecticut. So just outside of New York, like 45 minutes or so outside of New York. And really went deep with it. And at the time, I think there was like 6 or 8 of us in the room. It was like one of his very early events.
Okay.
And I watched what he was doing. I'm like, David, he had studied with Tony Robbins too. He was one of the guys who used to work on Tony. So like, he had been really engaged with all that personal development work, which had monumental things for me. And I'm like, David, like, this is just Tony's work. This is just Donnie's work. I'm like, I already know this. And he's like, yeah, you might know this. He's like, but you don't know it. Yeah. He's like, it's not in your body. And my first inclination was, fuck you, David. And I was like, but you're right. And he challenged me to just do, the first 4 exercises, stages 1 through 4 for the first 90 days.
Knowing and doing
out of it.
2 different things.
2 different things. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. And I did. And that single shift there really started to just shift my neurology, where I started to work out all that stuff. And I really got with the pain and the suffering I was holding on to about my brother. Like, I'd always believed he was the good brother, I was the bad brother. He had kept the marriage, I had the addiction. Like, why did God take him and me? It was like survivor's guilt. So I was holding on to all of that. And like, when I finally got with that, it freed me up. And I didn't have the anger anymore. I didn't have to, So I went from that event. Within 30 days, I put my marriage back together. And then within 90 days, we ended up going back to the school in California. I was back in school. Really? And I just stayed on the course to finish. Like, I was really close to it had been, I was going to take 1 quarter off, and that had become a year. Yeah. So it was getting to that danger point of like, hey, are you gonna finish this? Yeah. So that really put me on the road back to that. And it took me about 6 months of bugging David of like, bro, what you're doing, this is amazing. Like, this is a bar none, and I've done tons of personal development stuff. Like, this is impacting me more than any of those things. Let me help you. Like that was my skill set before going to school. And it took about 6 months. Then I started running his Facebook ads, and eventually he had another marketing guy he fired. I took over that. And by the end of the year, I was like running the back end of the business, flying back and forth from California to Stanford to help facilitate events, like once a month, back and forth. And just seeing these amazing transformations that would happen with all sorts of men from all walks of life that have had sexual abuse, trauma, child molestation, you name it, deaths in the family, deaths of their kids, suicide, like all of those things, and how they started to unwind that and to build better relationships and to create a better life for themselves.
That's crazy. Yeah. What was it that you did at first for you? What were you actually doing, and what results were you getting? And then what does the course do exactly?
So what was I doing?
Yeah, when you went out to Stanford, you did it, you started applying. What were you applying? What were you actually doing?
Yeah, so like purposely doing the exercises. Like that was
what were the exercises?
Like the consciousness exercises that I was referencing earlier, like that, like in a way that I'd never done them before.
So stuff that you knew.
Stuff that I knew of, and maybe I'd done it, like mechanically done it, but really started to not just like physically do it, but tap into like, okay, what's the purpose behind this? Like I didn't have a clean purpose with it before. And I also didn't have the discipline or the habit of doing it. Okay. Like that was probably the biggest difference.
Did it have to be a daily thing?
For me, it was. Like I might skip Sunday, like type of thing. But then days that I skip Sunday, like I don't necessarily have the best days with my family on Sunday.
Gotcha.
So I've seen that. You
started to recognize it.
I started tracking it, and I would see like, oh, okay, hey, oh wow, that didn't have a great day that day.
That's interesting.
Like
maybe I need to step this up.
Yeah. Maybe that's a piece of it. and I see in the practice now, like, I mean, I have videos for people, and like I've done workshops for people, and I would say about half take it up and do it. And the other half, and there's a difference in results. Like there's one level of results that people get with working with us, and there's another level of results that people get.
You can talk about that with anything, right?
Yeah.
It goes back to that knowing. Everyone knows how to eat, right? Oh, right. Everyone knows what's good for them.
Right.
How many people are doing it? Everyone knows they need to work out. How many people are doing it? Knowing and doing, two totally different things. Like always preaches. So it seems like you're not a believer until you experience it yourself.
Yeah.
And once you experience it, if it's good, you're sold. You're 110% in.
Yeah. And
then you want to help everyone else.
Yes.
That's pretty amazing.
I think that's I've never heard it summed up that way, but yeah, that's if it works, I'm in. I'll do it. I'll find some way to incorporate it and do it.
You got to know for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't sit back and watch and like, oh, that looks good. Like, no, like this was amazing and this is why it's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's probably why you're so passionate about it, because you know what both things have done for you personally.
Yeah.
And by doing so, you can help thousands, tens, hundreds of thousands.
I mean, there's been 3 separate times. So my wife and I have been together since 2012. So what is that? 2011. So it's 12 years now. Been married for 8 of those. It'll be 8 this summer. And there's been 3 separate times when I've almost burned our relationship to the ground.
Really?
Yes. The year that my brother got sick, we called it off. We were engaged. We called off our engagement. We ended up getting back together. This in 2017. And then when we got here in 2019, COVID hit in 2020. That was a crucible year for us. The difference being each one of those times, like the refractory period. So the period of when, things go south.
Yeah.
And I can put it back together, gets shorter and shorter.
Gotcha.
And shorter.
You got the tools, you're actually applying the tools.
Yeah.
And you're actually better at applying those tools.
Right.
That's interesting.
And I actually got out of the community for a bit and then, plugged back in. And I've been a lot more plugged back in the last few years. Like there was a period, like right as I was like finishing the clinical experience, that I was just like, I just don't have time. So I'd gone away from it. And then I watched my life. It's just like David, one of David's sayings is gravity is fierce. It's that gravity's always seeking to pull you back down. I think the Aussies call it like tall poppy syndrome.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You grow too much, they cut you back down.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's
crabs in a bucket.
Crabs in a bucket. Yeah. So it's the same thing of like if you're not surrounding yourself with people and in this case men that are playing at a high level, that are holding you accountable, that are living at a standard that you want to live at, your standards get dropped.
Yeah, I've heard people talking even when they stop reading, self-educating.
Yep.
As soon as the reading's off, the whole life starts to fall off.
Yeah.
And I like personally, I can experience that too. That's why I'm constantly talking to people, reading stuff.
Yep.
Constantly keeps you accountable and constantly keeps you pushing further, I guess.
Yeah.
So, men's mental health. What's going wrong? I feel like you're the perfect person to talk to.
What's going wrong?
You've seen a lot. You've talked to a lot of people. You've met a lot of people. You've seen a lot of people.
Yeah.
What are guys doing wrong?
I think we're getting better at this, but I
do agree with that.
It's still
because we've been a little bit more open with it.
It's the destigmatization. It's opening up and actually having the conversation, and getting out of our heads and trying to lone wolf it, where we really think that
lone wolf it. Yeah.
Yeah, like I got this. I don't need any help. We go in our cave and like I'm going to figure this out.
Yeah. You're literally talking about me.
Me too.
Yeah. It's so nice to hear that because I am being different now, but everything you said, I'm like, that was me.
Yeah.
I got this.
Or just feeling that we're not alone. I think for a lot of guys, we think no one's going to understand my problems. Yeah. I had this happen or I had this happen. You're not going to get me because you didn't have these things happen.
Yeah. I got cheated on. I got a kid and
Yeah.
I mean, you got 2 kids, 2 different. Like everyone's got something.
Right. And chances are, like the problems you're having are not unique to you.
I've got the exact same problem as you.
Yeah.
I literally have a kid in a different state to my ex-wife. Like the exact same problem.
Yeah.
Well, did I talk to anyone about it when it happened?
No.
I got this.
Yeah. And they transcend cultures too, right? So hey, I can be an American. Aussies have similar problems. Chances are, if you're a European or an African or an Asian,
it's exactly the same, right?
It's going to be the same.
Yeah.
We have similar problems, and it's universal. I think that there's a human experience to it that we neglect to see, and I think just opening up and starting to have those conversations, and there didn't used to be any rooms for us to do this, 10 years ago. I mean, there was the Mankind Project. That was probably one of the big, there was local church groups. Garrett J. White started Wake Up Warrior. That was one of the early ones. David with Man on Fire, that was one of the early ones. There's another guy, Raul Velasquez. There's a few offshoots from Wake Up Warrior. Raul Velasquez with Next Level Experience, or Sean Whalen, Lions Not Sheep. So there's a few groups that started to splinter it. And even in the last 2-3 years, there's all these men's groups that have popped up. I think it's pushed into the conversation a lot more than what it used to. But destigmatizing it is probably the biggest thing, because what are we taught as men? Men don't cry.
I don't think we're even taught that.
Yeah,
I think it's just monkey see, monkey do.
It's monkey see, monkey do.
My dad never told me not to cry.
Well, it was suck it up.
I just never saw him cry.
It was suck it up.
I saw him a firefighter. I saw him a provider. I saw him work 3 jobs. I saw him cry once when his mom passed away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's never told me that. It's just what I've seen.
My dad gave me, if you keep crying, I'll give you something to cry about.
There you go.
That was one of them.
Yeah.
That got locked in there.
Yeah, locked in there until you're 40. You're like, oh, that's right. Like,
oh, wow.
Yeah, where did that come from? Yeah, and then our role models, superheroes, our movie stars, our brute males.
Right.
The Rock.
Clint Eastwood.
Even Clint Eastwood. Even go back to like, what was it, Dean
Martin,
one of those, all the way back there. All these brute males.
John Wayne,
Fonzie, all these alpha males,
right? And
then you got The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, those guys now,
right?
So,
yeah, I mean that's the archetype we're given, right? But man, I've seen enough. Doesn't matter. You scratch the surface on a guy. You get him in a space where you can be vulnerable, and the man that's vulnerable is the most powerful man in the room. Like he can open up that space and just be real.
What do you mean by that?
There's power in vulnerability. I think that's the piece that we're not taught. We're taught that if we're vulnerable, we're not powerful. But the opposite's true. Like vulnerability connects us with people. Like vulnerability will, move people in a profound way.
Brene Brown's a good example of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she does on the female side.
Right. Yeah, I think women have had a lot of this stuff for a while. They've been doing a lot of the work. I call it the work of like healing and transforming the wounds and traumas that we've had.
Communicating.
Yeah, communicating.
Yeah.
They've been doing that a lot longer than we have. We're just starting to catch on. It's been very small communities of men, but I think we're at the epicenter of an explosion of that. But there's still a lot to do. I mean, it's still, it's almost every day where I get a wife or a mother or somebody who's like, I want this man in my life to come do this or do that, and like he won't talk about it. He's not ready for that, or it happens all the time. And it's like when those guys are ready, typically as men we need it to be like really painful.
Yeah.
Like my arm's falling off. The wife is out the door, child passed, dad or mom passing is usually a big torch-bearing moment for a lot of men, like particularly if they were close to one of them. Like that usually rocks the foundation for a man to the point where he's ready to get help.
Okay.
I mean, it can be any of those events. Losing a big career, that can be a big event. A significant diagnosis like cancer or heart attack, like those can be big events. But I mean, we can wait for that, or we can choose. We can choose to, from a place of excitement or joy, or like, why not do that instead of waiting?
Yeah.
That's my thought too.
What do you think is important? Do you think it's important just for guys to have guy time, guys to have guy friends? Like, what do you think is most important there?
Yeah, I think both are important. I think for me, I find that I need a lot more alone time. I find that I need a lot more time to ground myself with who am I?
Like, away from work, the wife, the kids.
Yeah, just to take those times to do the journaling, to do the meditating, to do the conscious exercise, to do the cold plunge, whatever that is, to be out in nature, to explore, to get centered, to find my center. And then I find that I need time with other men, not necessarily friends. I've way less. I had a lot of drinking buddies.
Well, yeah, that's environment, right?
Yeah.
Right environment.
Right. I mean, one of the first 20 events, that the biggest thing that I got was, hey, you're the average of your 5 best friends. Yeah. And I looked around at my friends, and I'm like, I got a lot of drinking buddies that cheat on their wives, that are garbage to their bodies, that they don't have great relationships.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
this isn't who I want to be.
Yeah.
So I had to upgrade my peer group.
Yeah.
I had to get around other men who are doing epic shit.
Yeah.
Who want to live a better life, who want to have great relationships with their wives and their kids. They want to have a great business that's adding value to the world. They want to create value and give back. They want to have health and vitality and, you know, show up in service.
Do you have those friends now?
Yeah. So I have several communities that I can plug into, like when I get challenged, and then I build some of my own. And you know, and I know that's things that you're doing.
Yeah,
like
that's exactly
creating these communities where guys, you know, men and women can tap into to get more access. So
yeah, for me it was like I was fit, I was in shape, I liked what I do, I was making the money I wanted to make, but I wasn't happy. I was lonely.
Yeah.
And when you're lonely, it sucks. It really sucks. It's like, and it was hard. It was very hard for me to come out and say that. But kind of going back to that vulnerability and trying to show vulnerability and be vulnerable.
Yep.
And by being vulnerable, it opened up to other people who were vulnerable back.
Yep.
And 2 months, 60 people in this group, hosting my first event in 2 weeks. Like,
wow.
Just amazing.
Yeah.
I go from not having any close friends to literally having more friends that I don't know what to do with now.
That's amazing.
Which is just, and it's not about me.
Yeah.
It's what I've seen other people open up and tell me and being able to help other people. That's been the best bit.
Yeah.
And this group this event is not about me.
Yeah.
It's the fact I'm bringing a whole bunch of strangers together. Every time I bring strangers together, the like-minded people, like I said, they all gel.
Yeah.
We go hiking with a bunch of strangers. They're all best friends within 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Guys are so easy if you get the right guys.
Right.
They're not drinking. They're not smoking. They're not complaining.
Yeah.
They're talking ideas, business, books.
Yep.
It's amazing.
Yep.
So I 100% on the same page as you.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else do you want to touch on? I know you do a lot. Is there anything you want to kind of share or talk about?
No, I think you tapped the well a bit here. Just that you're not alone. You know, if you're listening to this, like there's other men out there. There are
going through the same thing.
Yeah,
or being through the same thing.
There's resources, and it takes a lot of courage. It's courageous to raise your hand and go, I need help.
Yeah.
And I look back on my life now, I'm like, God, why did I wait so long? Like, or I would, but I wouldn't really go deep enough to like really talk about what was really going on with me. Like maybe I'd open up a little bit.
You're giving 5%.
Yeah. Like,
you're getting 5% results back.
Like, yeah, right. Versus like, no, well, here's the truth of what's really happening. And to be able to do that, it's so freeing. Like, and there's always another level, right? I think that's just part of life. But I waited so long to like do that, and it's just being willing to be vulnerable and be open and to get out there and just ask.
Females love it.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
The support from females is so good.
Yeah.
They're like messaging me, texting me, saying like, oh my God, this is amazing, volunteering time and reason.
Yeah.
The guys are like, cool. Like the girls know the guys need it.
Yeah.
The guys don't know that they need it. The girls know they need it better, more than anybody.
So here's the last piece that I'd like that I feel is important. The more you do your healing, the more you invite others to heal. So I just spent the weekend with my oldest daughter. She just flew out this morning.
How old is she?
She's now 20.
Oh, wow.
She's a sophomore at the University of Virginia, and in 2020, her half brother, her younger brother, had committed suicide. And we'd had a period where we weren't talking. There was a lot that was happening between us. And it slowly opened up these last few years. And I haven't seen her. This is the first time we've seen her in 4.5 years.
Oh, wow.
So our relationship had gone from a year and a half, 2 years where we didn't speak at all. And then the suicide happened and that started opening up a door. And then slowly things have just, and a lot of that was just me doing the work, like letting all the stuff coming up. And there was a lot of cleanup from my ex-wife and I. And this is 20 years of relationship. And she sat with us last night and was just so open and so vulnerable. And through all the times that I've been through things, like I was just able to hold space for her, to not make her wrong about things, to not judge her, and just be with her in it. And she's not getting that anywhere else in her life. And I could just see she was able to let go and just be vulnerable herself and to, express that. And I could see it was like healing for my wife was in tears, like just healing for the dynamic of us, but healing that for the dynamic of her. I know it's going to heal my other 2 daughters. Like, this is the first time she's even met my 4-year-old. Like really? They have never been in the same room together for this weekend.
But leading by example, just over time, and her seeing that.
Yeah, I think it was just I just kept showing up.
Yeah, it doesn't happen overnight, does it?
I kept saying the things I was going to do and doing the things I was going to.
That's interesting.
Said I was going to do. Whereas maybe previously, I was 80% of that, and and I wasn't. I was untrustworthy. That's how the feminine will view the masculine. When we don't say what we're going to do, is we're untrustworthy.
Okay.
And I was very untrustworthy for a very long time. So it's healing that and seeing that and being really open. She was very open with me. I was very open with things about the addiction and PTSD, the things that I've struggled with.
Yeah.
In a way that she was never ready for before.
Yeah. How could you be?
Being younger, but now she's an adult and she's seeing what's happening with her parents and like what's happening. So there's a dynamic shift that's happening, and I think that's healing. Like this is the charge. If you're in the work, and I mean like the healing work, doesn't matter what modality you're doing or what group you're in, you're meant to be doing that because it's not just healing for you, it's healing for your family. It's healing for your parents, for your grandparents, even if they're not here. It's like lineage healing. It's healing for your kids, your grandkids. Like there's in the shamanistic culture, they say when you resolve something and you heal something, it heals it 7 generations back and 7 generations forward.
That's interesting.
So there's deep work that it's not just you resolving your shit. Like it's familial, it's lineage, it's big.
That's very interesting. Yeah. I just want to ask you, daily habits.
Yeah.
You've taught meditation, cold, different things. What do you do?
I'm really strict on meditation. That's been a daily habit for me.
How long do you do it for? When do you do it?
I do a lot of the Dr. Joe Dispenza meditations, sometimes 45 minutes, sometimes an hour and a half. Oh, wow.
So you really give yourself some time.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Short time, like this morning, woke up a little bit late. I think I have another meditation. I have a bunch of series of them, and I can just, hey, I got 15 minutes. I had 15 minutes this morning, so I did 15 minutes. Yeah. So that kind of keeps me on the level. But if I want to go deeper, I have longer things. So that's really solid for me. Getting care myself. That was what I was not doing in 2020, so I started getting care myself. Okay. There's another document.
You still get that?
Yeah, I still receive that. So that keeps
you've been having that for 12 years or so?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, on and off. There's been long periods where it's been very consistent, and it'll go off. Okay. But like recently on it, hydrating properly, exercising. I'm in the gym 5 days a week, and
You just lifting? Or?
I'm lifting. I'm doing a little bit of cardio, like just staying active. Like even if it's just I'm doing 10 minutes, I'm sweating. Yeah. Like it's movement, getting my body moving.
Movement.
Yeah.
It's probably the most consistent word I've heard in that scene.
Right. I had a colonel when I was a cadet. He's just like, and he was in his 40s, and he's just like, I don't run as fast as I used to, but I go out and I run every day. And it was just like that philosophy of like, I'm just gonna move my body every day.
Yeah.
So I do that, and then the breathwork piece, like I'm sporadic on the cold plunges. I still don't. Really don't like the cold. Like
nobody likes the cold.
No. I'll do it. Actually, the guy that works for me, he's really consistent. He's actually very consistent with it. But I find I get great results with it.
What do you do the cold?
I just find a pool that's not heated at this time of year.
It's perfect.
Yeah. That makes it easy.
Gotcha. You got anything else? You journaling daily?
Journaling, no. Probably once or twice a week for journaling. That I could do a little bit more.
Okay. Fasting, diet, things like that.
Intermittent fasting. I'll keep it to like a 14 to 16 hour window.
Okay. Yeah, I find that might be in a fast.
Yeah, I'm down probably 30, 40 pounds from where I was at the peak weight. So I could do another 10 pounds if I'm still tweaking some stuff.
Yeah.
Diet wise.
But I mean, it's just find that balance for you too.
Yeah.
Right?
But the intermittent fasting piece really works well for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
Appreciate it, man.
That was awesome.
Cool. Thank you.